This evening, first up, no exceptions, no excuses. The entire management team of the MV Barima have been suspended, and video footage from the wharf is now in police hands. The government says nothing will stand in the way of finding the truth. Also, President Ali stands with grieving families in Port Kaituma as search and rescue teams continue combing the waters for those still missing. A nation is grieving alongside them, and the president says every resource will stay deployed for as long as it takes. Then a pickup truck plunges into a concrete drain on a quiet Sunday morning. And it was only during recovery that rescuers realized both men inside were already gone. Sookram and Leon Sookdeo are dead, and police are still trying to understand how the vehicle left the road. Meanwhile, a quiet evening turns to gunfire at a West Bank Demerara home. A woman shot dead by her estranged husband, a second woman wounded, and the gunman then turned the weapon on himself. Police are calling it a murder-suicide rooted in domestic violence. And a Trinidad court permanently halts the extradition of former FIFA Vice President Jack Warner, ruling his constitutional rights were violated and ordering the government to pay him damages. Those stories and more are coming up. Stay with us. Welcome to this broadcast of Channel 2's Headline News Update for July 20th, 2026. I'm Bibi Bacchus. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight's newscast with a tragic story. Nearly 48 hours after the devastating MV Barima incident, the search and recovery operation continues along the Essequibo River as members of the Ghana Coast Guard transport the bodies of victims recovered from the water to the charity wharf. Search teams, supported by other emergency responders and volunteers, have remained on the river since the incident, combing the area in hopes of locating those still unaccounted for. At the charity wharf, grieving relatives and residents have gathered, anxiously awaiting news of their loved ones as each Coast Guard vessel returns. Authorities have not yet concluded the recovery efforts, with search operations expected to continue until everyone involved has been accounted for. Officials have also pledged a full investigation into the circumstances surrounding the incident. As Ghana mourns this heartbreaking loss, communities across the country continue to stand in solidarity with the bereaved families, united in grief and hope that every missing loved one will be brought home. Continuing on our coverage of this tragic incident, the captain of the sunken MV Barima ferry was allegedly under the influence of marijuana while in command, officials revealed Sunday night as authorities scrambled to determine how many passengers were actually aboard after discovering the ship's manifest was widely inaccurate. Minister of Public Works Bishop One Edghill confirmed the Ghana Coast Guard is leading search efforts, supported by the Ghana Defence Force, MARIT and private partners, with 15 boats, divers, and sonar equipment deployed since a distress signal was received Saturday night. The operation has been complicated by the discovery that dozens of rescued passengers were never listed on the manifest. Edghill said, "We don't really know the real number right now," revealing more than 116 people have been aboard, with over 66 unaccounted for by Sunday sunset. Edghill added that people's lives are at risk and those matters will be dealt with. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mark Phillips confirmed rescue crew members, including the captain, tested positive for cannabis. The ferry carrying 17 crew members was en route from Georgetown to Port Kaituma in the Essequibo region. Up to press time today, several bodies have been recovered. The public is being urged to contact emergency family assistance centers or the emergency hotline to help identify unlisted passengers. ExxonMobil and the Caribbean Regional Security System are assisting with vessels, divers, and aircraft. Search efforts continue for as long as necessary. Trinidad and Tobago has deployed its Coast Guard and a surveillance aircraft to Guyana to aid in the search and rescue operations. No exceptions, no excuses. As questions mount over the MV Barima tragedy, the government of Guyana has suspended the vessel's entire management team, determined to ensure that truth, not influence, drives the outcome of this investigation. In his sweeping move to protect the integrity of an upcoming investigation, the entire management team responsible for loading, dispatch, and overall operations of the MV Barima was sent home, signaling just how seriously authorities are taking the unfolding tragedy. Prime Minister retired Brigadier Mark Phillips announced the decisive action during a press conference last evening, explaining that removing the team from the workplace is intended to prevent tampering with evidence or materials and to ensure the forthcoming inquiries remain fair and unprejudiced.
The government has ordered an urgent and comprehensive investigation involving members of the Guyana Police Force, the Guyana Defense Force, the Maritime Administration Department, and other technical maritime experts will comprise this team that has started working, conducting this investigation. The investigation will examine all of the facts and circumstances surrounding this tragedy, including the accuracy of the passenger manifest, the loading of passengers and cargo, compliance with maritime safety regulations, and the conduct of the captain and crew before and during the voyage.
Adding weight to the investigation, the Ghana Police Force has already extracted video footage from the Kingston Goods Wharf, the vessel's point of departure, which is expected to offer critical insight into the sequence of events leading up to the incident. In a late-night meeting, Minister of Public Works Bishop Ejil met with senior staff of the Transport and Harbour Department, including the General Manager, to formally notify them of their suspension and outline the administrative steps ahead. The Ministry and the Government of Guyana have reaffirmed their commitment to a thorough, transparent, and exhaustive investigation, vowing full accountability as the nation awaits answers on what led to the tragedy. Stick around when we return. President Ali visits Region 1 as search continues for missing MV Barima victims, and 2 dead after pickup plunges into drain along Henry Public Road.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny? I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lender's, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. As grief hangs heavy over Port Kaituma, President Dr. Mohamed Irfan arrived in Region 1 early this morning, standing shoulder to shoulder with survivors and grieving families in the aftermath of one of Ghana's most heartbreaking maritime tragedies, even as search and rescue teams continue combing the waters for those still missing. During his visit, President Ali spent time with relatives of the victims, listening to their concerns and offering words of comfort in the wake of the MV Barima incident. The president also met with survivors, assuring them that the government remains fully committed to supporting those affected and bolstering emergency response efforts on the ground. Since the tragedy occurred on Saturday, government officials have maintained a constant presence in the region, working closely with emergency responders to support families anxiously awaiting news of their loved ones. Search and recovery operations remain active, with teams working in close coordination with the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, the Ghana Defense Force Coast Guard, the Ghana Police Force, and other response agencies to account for everyone who was aboard the vessel. Meanwhile, investigations into the circumstances of the tragedy are progressing, with authorities expected to release further updates as more information becomes available. President Ali reassured affected families that every available resource will be deployed for as long as the search lasts, with the government's efforts firmly centered on bringing them the answers they deserve. Families affected by the MV Barima vessel incident who require information, support, or assistance are encouraged to contact the dedicated Emergency Family Assistance Hotline on 702-8580. On a different note, 2 men are dead after their pickup plunged into a drain on the east bank of Demerara, echoes the Oval Quarter. Bill Jarvis joins us now with more on this developing story.
A routine Sunday morning turned tragic on East Bank Demerara when a pickup truck veered off Henry Public Road and plunged into a concrete drain, claiming the lives of 2 men. The Guyana Police Force has launched a police investigation into how the vehicle ended up submerged along the busy Eccles to Ogle bypass corridor. The victims have been identified as 38-year-old Brian Sookram of Crown Dam Industry, East Coast Demerara, who was driving motor pickup GRR 5251, and passenger 35-year-old Leon Sookdeo of Diamond New Housing Scheme, East Bank Demerara. According to preliminary investigations, the vehicle was discovered overturned in a concrete drain roughly 15 feet wide and 10 feet deep on the southern side of the roadway. A tow truck was called in to extract the pickup, and it was only during the recovery operation that both men were found motionless inside. Sookram and Sookdeo were rushed to the Diamond Regional Hospital, where a doctor pronounced them dead on arrival. Their bodies have since been taken to Memorial Gardens Federal Home, where they await post-mortem examinations to determine the exact cause of death. Police say investigations into the incident are ongoing, with authorities yet to determine what caused the vehicle to leave the roadway. Reporting for Headline News Update, Dale Jarvis.
Thanks, Dale. A suspected murder-suicide at La Parfait, Harmony, has left an estranged couple dead and a woman hospitalized in West Bank Demerara. Here again is Dale Jarvis.
What began as a quiet evening at a La Parfait Harmony West Bank Demerara residence erupted into gunfire on Saturday, leaving a woman dead at the hands of her estranged husband in a suspected act of domestic violence that ended in murder-suicide, according to police. The deceased have been identified as 42-year-old Anna Trotman, a shop owner, and her estranged husband, 47-year-old John Trotman, of Under Neiman, West Bank Demerara. A 59-year-old woman was also shot during the incident and remains hospitalized. Police said the tragedy unfolded sometime between 9:30 and 10:30 after an argument broke out at the residence. Investigators believe John Trotman shot Anna before firing additional shots that wounded the 59-year-old woman, then inflicting similar wounds on himself. Emergency responders arrived to find both Anna and John with gunshot wounds. They were rushed to West Demerara Regional Hospital, where they were pronounced dead on arrival. Their bodies were later taken to Ezekiel Funeral Home to await post-mortem examinations. Detectives recovered a pistol, 9 spent shells, and 30 live rounds of ammunition at the scene. Investigations are ongoing. The case has renewed concern over intimate partner violence as authorities continue piecing together the events that led to the fatal confrontation between the estranged couple. If you or anyone you know is a victim of domestic abuse or is in a crisis, call the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security 914 hotline today. Reporting for Headline News Update, Dale Jarvis.
Don't go away after the break. Burkina Faso military armed groups accused of horrific civilian killings, and Philippines debates youth crime laws after deadly school shooting.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lender's, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. Now we'll take a look at what's happening in the region and around the world.
Good evening, I'm Dominic Gittins tonight. A Trinidad court permanently blocks Jack Warner's extradition to the US. Burkina Faso's president claims victory over armed groups, but rights groups dispute it. Russia launches one of its biggest missile strikes on Kyiv, and a school shooting in the Philippines reignites a national debate. We will begin in the Caribbean. A Trinidad and Tobago High Court judge has permanently halted extradition proceedings against former FIFA Vice President Jack Warner, ruling the case breached his constitutional rights. Justice Karen Reed ordered the Attorney General to pay damages and legal costs to Warner, who faces 29 charges in the United States, including fraud and racketeering. The amount of damages will be determined at a case management conference in September. Burkina Faso's president, Captain Ibrahim Touré, says government forces have retaken most of the country from armed groups. But rights groups say that's not the case. Al Jazeera's Malcolm Webb reports.
Burkina Faso's army says this is one of its many battlefield successes. After years of growing attacks by armed groups in the Sahel region, it says it's retaken most of the country. But international observers and rights groups say the armed groups are moving freely over more of Burkina Faso and launching bolder attacks than ever, and that government-aligned forces are now responsible for most of the civilians killed. Human Rights Watch says this video is one of many showing attacks in which government-aligned forces have killed hundreds of civilians who they say were supporting their enemies. When we met the military government's Minister of Defence, he didn't answer many of our questions.
All these accusations are conspiracies. The videos are manipulated by the deceitful terrorists and their allies to darken the names of courageous countries that have decided to assert their sovereignty, to be independent and to free themselves from neo-colonialism.
When Ibrahim Traoré took power in a coup nearly 3 years ago, he promised to defeat the armed groups. Rights groups say critics have been tortured and journalists have been arrested or disappeared.
We haven't been allowed to film anything with the army. We are allowed to film with these sculptures of soldiers. Because of the lack of independent information here, it's difficult to evaluate the government's claims of success.
Rights activist Binta Sidibe, exiled in Paris, says government-linked militia killed several members of her family at a wedding 2 years ago to try and silence her.
People turn against the state when they face injustice, when they face impunity. You have villages where the army or the government militia arrive and execute their neighbors. Children witness these scenes. A few hours later, armed terrorist groups arrive and ask these people to join them, promising to keep them safe. These are communities rejected by the Republic. What else can they do?
Conflict observers say millions of people in Burkina Faso have been forced from their homes. The government says many are now safely returning. Difficult to verify. Humanitarian organisations say they're increasingly blocked from providing support or even reporting displacement. Malcolm Webb, Al Jazeera, Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso.
Russia has launched one of its largest missile attacks on Kyiv since the start of the war, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Al Jazeera's Audrey McAlpine reports.
One of the largest missile attacks on Ukraine's capital since the war began. According to President Volodymyr Zelensky, Russia launched more than 40 missiles overnight, killing and wounding people across Kyiv. The strikes damaged multiple sites across the city. The entrance to this metro station collapsed when a missile struck nearby. Many people were sheltering inside. Survivors told us about the chaos that followed.
People were huddled together, trying to comfort each other. Some were crying, some were having panic attacks, and the dogs were barking in fear. It's a very tense and frightening atmosphere.
In response, President Volodymyr Zelensky said protecting Ukraine against ballistic missiles remains his top priority. But of the missiles Russia launched overnight, Ukraine intercepted fewer than half. Since May, large-scale attacks have intensified. and neighborhoods like Kyiv's Lukyanivka district are now frequent targets.
Lukyanivka was hit once again, as it has been so many times before. People in Kyiv sometimes joke that anyone living in Lukyanivka deserves veteran status, because the neighborhood has endured countless strikes.
Neighborhoods like this one, just a 10-minute drive from the city center, are in ruins. The government says more interceptor missiles are on the way. But until then, people here in the capital have little choice but to wait for the next attack. Audrey McAlpine, Al Jazeera, Kyiv.
A deadly school shooting in Tacloban City has reignited debate in the Philippines over youth crime, juvenile justice, and school safety. Al Jazeera's Barnaby Low reports.
A loud bang. And another. This video shows panicked children in a primary school in the central Philippines in June. 2 teenagers shot and killed 3 students. The attack has been described as rare, but alarming enough to prompt the government to act.
This high school is considered one of the best in the Philippines, and it hired security guards years ago, but after the school shooting incident in Tacloban City last month, it's added a few more measures. Guards now have metal detectors to check for guns and other potential weapons, and people carrying bags or backpacks like I am today may have to submit to an inspection.
The school is also the first in the country to conduct an active shooter drill. Congress is discussing a call to jail juvenile offenders. Currently, those younger than 15 are sent to rehabilitation centers, while those aged between 16 and 18 may face criminal proceedings if they're found to have understood the consequences of their actions. 17-year-old Alvin is awaiting sentencing. We agreed to protect his identity and not reveal his crime. He's being held in a state-run facility.
For me, the hardest part of being here is not having the freedom to see my parents anytime. When I was free, they're just at home anytime I needed them.
Human rights advocates say putting young people like Alvin behind bars would only harden them.
It is the duty to reform them accordingly, because as we mentioned, it's there. The discernment is not there, and it's easier to influence them. It's easier to put them in the track where jail is like the end point.
But survivors and families of some victims say for justice to be served, perpetrators need to be punished. Rhoda Ricabor's son was stabbed to death by a schoolmate in February.
They're not afraid to commit crimes because they believe there will be no consequences. But if they are penalized like ordinary criminals, then maybe they'll think twice.
But Alvin says he didn't understand the gravity of his actions and is grateful he has an opportunity to reflect and change. Barnaby Low, Al Jazeera, Manila.
Thanks, Dominique. This brings us to the end of our regional and global news coverage. Up next is the 3-event forecast. And that's it to the 2 Headline News for this Monday evening. As we take our leave, we invite you to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. You can tune in tomorrow at 6:30 AM for rebroadcasts. and at 7 p.m. from the news. Until then, please take care of yourselves and each other.